And I was doing this talk on strategy because my thesis is that the most important thing to business success is building a winning strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a leader that is very charismatic, very empathetic, very smart. You could have a team that has all those qualities. But the problem is, if you don't make the right bets, you're not going to
Mm-hmm.
be successful. And you can look at Microsoft as a perfect example.
Welcome to the Startup to Exit podcast, where we will bring you world-class entrepreneurs and VCs to share their hard-earned success stories and secrets. This podcast has been brought to you by TIE Seattle. TIE is a global nonprofit that focuses on fostering entrepreneurship. TIE Seattle offers a range of programs, including the Go Vertical Startup Creation Weekend, TIE Entrepreneur Institute, and the TIE Seattle Angel Network. We encourage you to become a TIE member so you can gain access to these great programs. To become a member, please visit www.seattle.tie.org.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our podcast from Startup to Exit. I'm here with my co-host Shirish Nadkarni. My name is Gowri Shankar. We both serve on the board of TIE Seattle, which produces this podcast. First of all, we both want to thank you for all the support that you've given us over the last year, where we have brought this podcast to all of you. And I hope all of you have enjoyed all the content that we are bringing from our guest. We are launching a very special series. We are launching a series that is very close to both our hearts because we are both Seattleites. Microsoft just turned 50, and as a tribute to the company and the impact it's had on the world and our city, we are going to talk to some of the very early executives who shaped and grew the Microsoft brand to what it is today. I hope all of you enjoy it. We will be talking to many of them, and over the time, you will learn a lot of things about the early years of Microsoft. Thank you all, and hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everyone. Today is our fifth episode in the Microsoft at 50 podcast series. Very pleased to welcome Brad Chase, who's well known for his Windows 95 fame. Brad and I joined the same year in 1987, left a little bit ahead of him, but we also worked at different times on MSN. Brad was the senior vice president in charge of Windows 95 initially, and then went on to lead MSN. So welcome, Brad. Great to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Great, great. So as we discussed, you're well known for your Windows 95 fame, but you did a lot of important things before you worked on Windows 95. So can you share a little bit about your early career, starting with what made you join Microsoft? I mean, at that time, Microsoft was kind of getting known, but not necessarily an industry leader. So what made you join Microsoft, and what kind of products you worked on initially?
So when I was working as a sales rep, my father built a Heathkit computer. Heathkit was this place you would go to get these kits, and you'd build radios and TVs and stuff like that. He built a computer, and then he didn't know what to do with it, and he gave it to me. And it was this gigantic thing, super long, and you booted it up with a keyboard, not a keyboard, a numeric pad, sorry. And it had a separate, kind of CPU unit with that numeric pad, and a monitor and a separate keyboard, and it took up a huge desk. And I started playing with it, and I realized, I think this personal computer thing is going to be the future. And so I decided at that point that I was going to go back to school. And I was a little too old, I thought, at that point, to become a good programmer. So I decided to go the business route. And I went to business school, and then I targeted tech companies that were involved with the PC industry, and ended up at Microsoft.
That's great. So what was your first job as product manager when you joined Microsoft?
My first job was I was a product manager on Microsoft Works for the Macintosh. At the time, the third best-selling software product on the Macintosh. And Microsoft at that time got more of its revenue from Macintosh applications than it did from MS-DOS applications,
Oh, I remember that.
ironically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I did Works for a while, and then I was the first group product manager, or I don't remember my title, whatever. I was the head of Microsoft Office, marketing Microsoft Office, and
Was
that
that on the Macintosh or on the PC as well?
we had the Mac product, and I was there when we launched the Windows product.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I led that group, well, it wasn't much of a team. There was like three of us or something, but yeah, so I was in charge of that team and that effort. And then I got recruited, and it's a long story, a
Yeah, tell
fun
us
one.
about it. Yeah, tell us about it. Yeah.
Mike Mabel, who was the head of the applications division, called me in his office and said, Brad, the guys at MS-DOS want to talk to you about launching MS-DOS 5.
Oh my God, MS-DOS is
Yes,
that the MS-DOS that existed before a lot of people hearing this podcast were born?
correct. Yes. MS-DOS, and I said to Mike, look, I'm on Microsoft Office. It's core to the strategy for Windows and Microsoft. Why would I go to MS-DOS, which is, at the tail end of its history, even though for those who don't know, MS-DOS was the product that fueled Microsoft's early success and really fueled Microsoft's success into the early 90s and maybe even the mid 90s before Windows 95. But it felt like I was going to a non-strategic project, and Mike said to me, "Well, change is good." And I went back to my office, and I was kind of disappointed in Mike because he was kind of a mentor, and he was giving me this what felt like rote advice. But I got the message. Microsoft wanted me to go do that, so I led the launch of MS-DOS 5, and the key innovation there was we had the MS-DOS 5 upgrade. And so it was the first time in the history of MS-DOS that you could take a computer that had an older version of MS-DOS and upgrade it to MS-DOS 5. Previous to that, the only way to get a new version of MS-DOS was to buy a new computer. And that was a big deal. We had Midnight Madness sales, and people actually went pretty crazy about the MS-DOS 5
Wow.
upgrade. We had Dave Brubeck play Take 5 at the launch, and it was in New York on a boat that was called DOS Boat, and I mean, it was a lot of fun. And after MS-DOS 5, which was quite successful, I became the general manager for MS-DOS 6. So I ran
Mhm.
development and marketing for MS-DOS 6. That was the last big version of MS-DOS. And then it was after that that I had to decide what to do because MS-DOS was, no longer basically. And I had some opportunities to go be the general manager for like Microsoft Word and run all of that. But ultimately, I decided to do the marketing of Windows 95, and that's how I got to Windows 95.
Got it. Got it. So your marketing strategy for Windows 95, the three E's, which is I think really nice, way to encapsulate it, which is educate, excite, and engage. So tell us more about your marketing strategy for Windows 95. Because that's a really important, release. First time I think Microsoft had a Windows product that you could say was better than the Macintosh.
Yeah, it was an amazing product. So, one of the I get a lot of kudos and my team for the marketing of Windows 95, but it all starts with the fact that the development team built a great product with our input too, but they wrote the code obviously, and those guys, David Cole and his team did just an amazing job. But Windows 95 was the product that ushered computers into the mainstream, and I think people may have sensed that possibility because there was incredible interest in Windows 95 everywhere you went. And so when I became the marketing leader, all that was happening was we were trying to push away everybody who was trying to find out more about the product and learn about it. And, everybody wanted to hear the latest rumor about it, whatever. And one night I went home and finally, after the kids were to bed, I was thinking about it, and I decided that we needed to flip the whole marketing strategy on its head. And instead of trying to keep people from learning about Windows 95, that we should encourage people to learn about Windows 95, even though the product wouldn't be out for a while. And so I came up with the educate and engage and excite strategy, the E strategy, as you mentioned, to try to get people to learn about it, to get excited about it, and for third parties in particular to engage about it with it, figuring that would speed up the adoption of Windows 95 when it launched because people would already be very familiar with it. And the ultimate goal was to make Windows 95 a consumer phenomenon. So everybody would know about it, would have heard about it. And I like to say, well, in fact, I told the team that about a couple weeks before the launch, when Doonesbury ran a comic strip for a week making fun of Windows 95, that in fact we had achieved our goal to become a consumer phenomenon. So that was the goal, to become a consumer phenomenon. And the strategy was all about stopping from preventing people from learning about Windows 95, but instead to try to teach them, get them excited, get them engaged, so that when it launched, the transition would be simpler.
Got it. So what are some of the key elements of the launch? I'm sure getting Wolf Mossberg to bless Windows 95 was pretty important. Did he write about it before it launched, or was it at launch?
Well, his main review was at launch, and I remember it very well because Walt and I were very close, and I was the first Microsoft person he met with when he became a technology reporter, actually. And that at that time I met with him about MS-DOS 5. But when Windows 95 shipped, he did a review, and that review was very positive. But he kind of said, "Well, I won't give my full, recommendation to upgrade until, we find out if the product's got any kinks or problems." And so after a few months, I called up Walt and said, "Walt, you need to do another review of Windows 95." And he said, "Brad, I already did a review of Windows 95." And I'm like, "But Walt, you promised your readers you would get back to them." And he's like, "Oh, you're right. You got me on that one." And so he did, and then he recommended Windows 95. So that was a key moment because Walt and I had many debates, where we disagreed about stuff and agreed about stuff, but it was all in a very positive and constructive, form and tone. I really, really respected Walt a lot, still do. But that was only one part of what we did. I mean, the PR effort was gigantic, obviously, with Windows 95. But we had all sorts of programs, from demo discs to trainings of corporate people to working with OEMs to consumer workshops to the whole beta test process to the launch itself, which was obviously a big deal and a major event all around the world. To the Rolling Stones deal for Start Me Up, which to this day I still get asked about all the time. So all those things combined to make it a great launch event. And again, I want to reinforce that it was an incredible product, and the product, you can't market a crappy product in the software industry and be successful.
Right.
But you can screw up a good product or help make a good product successful. In this case, we took a great product and helped make it successful with a really stellar marketing effort by my team and other people around the world. We kind of created a template and messaging and what we were trying to achieve, and then all the Microsoft people around the world built on that, and so they had a lot of creative ideas as well.
Got it. So did the OEMs embrace Windows 95 wholeheartedly, or did you have to kind of convince them?
No, for the most part, they embraced it. Again, that was one of the benefits of the educate, excite, engage marketing strategy, because there was so much hype about Windows 95. No one wanted to be left out. So the PC manufacturers had Windows 95 on their PCs the day of the launch on August 24th, 1995. And software developers had products ready. Training people had training videos ready. People who made hardware add-ons had, for plug and play, had products ready. So it was a gigantic industry effort. I mean, it was the software launch of the 90s, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
And a template that was, in some ways followed by others like Apple later, although Apple never was as forthcoming with their product information. Apple's always more secretive, but they also did, have done obviously tremendous launches. Steve Jobs is a terrific marketing person, and he did a really nice job, especially with the early edition versions of the iPhone and so on. So yeah, it was really a tremendous time. And then as soon as we launched, of course, everybody wanted to know how we got the rights to the song, Start Me Up, for our ads. The ads were a huge success and tested off the charts. And so rumors started flying that Bill called up Mick Jagger and paid him $14 million for the rights to the Start Me Up, and all these crazy rumors. I think the Stones started that one to increase the price of future songs they might license. But actually, I did that deal over several months, including a trip to Amsterdam to meet with them. So it was just a really terrific and fun project to be working on with a great team of people who really came together, who each built their educate, excite, engage plans, an each strategy for each of their segments. My team was organized by segment, customer segment. So like a PR team, a corporate team, a consumer team, an OEM team,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So it was really great.
Great. Great. So I heard a rumor that there was some talk about whether the start button should be called the start button or the go button. Is there something to that story?
It wasn't a big deal. It was the start button the whole time. But there was one day where I got called to Bill's office, and Bill said to me, "Hey, Brad, what do you think about changing the start button to the go button?"
Oh no,
And some,
please don't.
yeah, I mean, it wasn't a bad idea really, but
Yeah.
it wasn't the right thing to do. So,
Yeah.
so I explained why it wasn't the right thing to do, and Bill said okay, and that was it. So it wasn't a big deal.
Mhm. Got it. Okay, good, good, good. And worked out with your Start Me Up song. I will get into that in more detail. So let me turn it over to Gowri to continue the discussion.
Yeah. Brad, thanks for coming on and reminiscing the mid 90s. But before we sort of go further into the Windows 95, the E strategy, as you explained to a minute ago, do you think that propelled the software into a consumer product? Prior to that, somewhere today they call it prosumer, but it was hobbyist and enthusiast, and the DOS 5, 6, they were good products, but this kind of leapt from the pages of technology magazines to People magazine. That's a non-trivial move for any company, let alone a software company in the 90s, because there was still there was still some mystery associated with software, or they thought, oh, this is for people who really, really are smart. Do you see that change happen, and that you and the team were quite responsible for ushering software into consumer?
Well, I don't know if we could take full credit for that. That would be bold, but that's what we were trying to do.
Uh-huh.
The whole thing, about making it a consumer phenomenon that I mentioned earlier, was sort of the key goal of the Windows 95 marketing effort. And you are very astute to point out that really, the whole PC phenomenon was a enthusiast phenomenon. In the earliest days, in the very early days, you basically didn't use a PC unless you programmed. You used
Mhm.
Microsoft Basic or some, stuff like that, and so that it was really a hobbyist product. And Windows 95 really was the product that ushered computers into the mainstream. And I'd like to think that the marketing effort of my team had a significant amount to do with that.
Mhm.
Propelled, of course, by a product that was much easier to use,
Mhm.
and well designed,
Mhm.
with a great user experience and key features, like preemptive multitasking
Mhm.
and plug and play, and a great user experience that helped make it happen. And then another thing which we forget sometimes is that the processing power was improving. So at
Mhm.
that time we had slightly more powerful computers come out,
Mhm.
uh, and so that allowed for people to feel more comfortable even if they weren't an enthusiast, because the computers and software worked a little more rapidly at that time. So
Mhm.
I think it was a combination of many things that led to it, but I'd like to believe that our marketing effort certainly was a major contributor to taking computers from the hobbyist realm to the mainstream consumer realm.
And Microsoft has not been credited as much, say, compared to Apple, of being the consumer device, right? But if you really think of it, Windows 95 reshaped retail because a lot may not remember the Circuit City and Best Buy and those kind of retailer, Radio Shack. They drew people in just to see what it was, and then you reshape a lot of OEMs. Those days there was Gateway, Dell, and those OEMs, in addition to established IBMs and others, it looked like it made many other verticals, industries, because suddenly everything had to work together, and the consumer was pushing them into making it work together. It wasn't just like, okay, I can buy a software, I'll put it on my. You had to make all of it work. Obviously, Moore's law helped significantly, but seems like the shift was just not for software. It was for retail, it was for OEMs, it was for many other players who kind of came together in the consumer's mind that they all had to work together.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, and it's very true. I mean, Egghead Software was a big deal then. They had Midnight Madness for Windows 95 as well.
Yeah.
And people lining up and selling the product really cheaply. So it was a combination of all those factors for sure that helped ignite the industry and the movement of software and hardware into the consumer mainstream. And another thing that's worth mentioning is it was also one of the first products where the consumer momentum helped propel the enterprise momentum, because the customers, of Windows 95 wanted to use Windows 95 in their workplace. And so that would put a lot of pressure on a lot of IT people to respond and figure out their rollout plans for Windows 95. And so, that's happened in many other places since then. I mean, the iPhone started as a consumer phenomenon, and now a lot of enterprises use it. But Windows 95 also pioneered a lot of that as well.
And if you look at OpenAI ChatGPT, the consumers really took to it. Yeah, albeit I could write better poetry was the first application. But since then, if you look at the whole agentic, right, it's similar. It's a consumer push that's got the enterprises to say, oh, we better start doing it. It might have got there, but seems like the Windows 95 model has repeated once for iPhone, another again for OpenAI. It seems like it's the marketing playbook that you wrote for Windows 95 probably worked again and again in many other launches.
Yeah, for the internet as well. I mean, the internet itself was propelled by consumer momentum as well. So, I mean, one of the lessons I've learned in life is that generally, if you do something really well and everything goes really well, you get a little too much credit sometimes. And sometimes if you don't do as well about something, you generally get too much blame. It's like the quarterback in football. If the team doesn't do well, everyone blames the quarterback or something. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to overdo my own pat myself on the back too much, or too much. But me and my team did a really nice job, and I think we did pioneer many things that became now staples of sort of future product or software launches. And that's something to be very proud of. I mean, the three of us and many others were central in the building of the PC industry, and that was quite a special thing to be a part of. And then we kind of got to repeat that for the internet, which was again another major milestone in the technology world that we got to be a part of again. And now AI is kind of another sort of transformation period that that's affecting the industry. And yeah, Windows 95 was sort of maybe the first set of rocket ships in that regard.
In the beginning, you mentioned that your inspiration was your dad, who brought in the do-it-yourself PC at your home, and you saw, hey, the potential was great. But seems like if I were to read the tea leaves, or at least interpret it, that stuck with you because you pushed every product that you pushed was, hey, make it easy so that everybody can use it, because you didn't want to be a programmer, which means you had to make it so simple that the rest of the world, which was lots of non-programmers, had to use your product. Was there a subtle message that you got or that stuck with you from when your dad brought the do-it-yourself kit to your house?
Yeah, I would say that the lesson I learned early on was that the most important part of the marketing mix is
Mm-hmm.
the product.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of mentioned earlier on, a marketing person can help make a great product more successful. But a
Mm-hmm.
marketing person, unless it's a commodity product, and that's a whole nother deal. But in the technology industry, for the most part, you can't market your way to success with a crappy product. And so, and as a sort of a consumer, uh, sort of core business person at heart, I cared a lot about making the product right and
Mm-hmm.
spent a lot of time trying to, work with the product team and the marketing team to add ease of use wherever possible. Now,
Mm-hmm.
also to give credit, that was part of the whole credo for Windows 95 in the first place. We always talked
Mm-hmm.
about, Brad Silverberg talked about making the product work great for his mom so she
Mm-hmm.
could use it. And development team was very focused on ease of use. So I want to give credit to many people who, on the team who really advocated for the ease of use that helped the success of Windows 95 and other Microsoft products, as both of you guys know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a focus for me as well.
Mm-hmm. So you worked on Apple before, before you went on to MS-DOS. That experience of working with Apple and the way they packaged and delivered products, how much of that changed your view into what other OEMs were doing? Because the OEMs were, compared to Apple, were in a slightly different realm. They were assembling things and they were putting software. The idea of having it all vertically integrated was unique to Apple and not to others. How much of your working with Apple experience helped you convince the OEMs to get on all the various products you launched at Microsoft, starting with Windows 95?
Candidly, not much.
Mm-hmm.
The you have to go back and remember what Apple was like back then.
Mm-hmm.
My strategy with Microsoft Works was I'm the third best-selling Microsoft product on the Macintosh and the third best-selling Macintosh product overall. I've
Mm-hmm.
got to work with Apple because the only way I don't have a much marketing budget. So
Uh-huh.
what I decided was I wanted to work with Apple, and I got Apple to bundle Works with some small business stuff, and I worked with Apple a lot. But the problem was back then Apple was really messed up. They were reorging every 6 months and bringing new people in all the time, new leadership. They were kind of a mess. So there wasn't really that much to learn from Apple in those days. They built a great
Mm-hmm.
product. The Mac was a great product, but for the most part, Apple was kind of, sort of hanging on with chewing gum and scotch tape and, all that kind of stuff back in those days. I remember once going to an Apple meeting when I was on Microsoft Works or Microsoft Office, and I was walking to the meeting, and a guy in this cubicle had a T-shirt, and the T-shirt had Apple USA written on it, which was the name of the USA division, and it had the date, and I don't remember what the date was, but say it was 1989 or 1990 or something in that realm, 88, and it had it crossed off, and then he had 10 other dates written on there because those were all the dates that they kept reorganizing, and every date was like a line through it with the new date. So I really didn't learn that much from Apple because at that time Apple was trying to find its way.
Yeah, and I'm glad you sort of shed light, because there's no memory of the history of Apple, right? Now they think everybody's like, hey, they launched great products, but there was a period of that they went through till probably till Jobs came back to Apple, and when Microsoft invested in Apple at that time, there was this turmoil of their existence, and they just didn't become the company that everybody credits to. And you guys played a role. Very few remember you played a role in investing and keeping it propped up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Bill helped save Apple.
Yeah,
It's a crazy story when you think about it. And
yeah,
you know, um,
yeah.
Steve Jobs had a good. I mean, as a person, he had his challenges perhaps, but he had a really good eye for good products and what needed to be done. Yeah. But it took Microsoft saving him give him that opportunity. Yeah,
Very few remember that,
yeah,
very
yeah,
few
yeah,
remember that.
yeah.
So you wrote a book. I mean, Shirish has written two. So yeah, I'm in the midst of elite authors here. So what was the reason you decided to write a book called Strategy First, and what was the message you wanted to get out? And talk a little bit about that, and hope our viewers and listeners buy your book.
Well, yeah. So it started with me doing talks to, you know, entrepreneurs or people that might be in like Thai and business school students and businesses would bring me in. And I
Mm-hmm.
was doing this talk on strategy because my thesis is that the most important thing to business success is
Mm-hmm.
building a winning strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could have a leader that is very charismatic, very empathetic, very smart. You could have a team that has all those qualities. But the problem is, if you don't make the right bets, you're not going to be
Mm-hmm.
successful. And you can look at Microsoft as a perfect example. I mean, Microsoft, Bill bet on the PC, Bill then bet on languages, then bet on operating systems, then bet on the graphical user interface, GUI, and later bet on the cloud, bet on AI, and we miss some bets too, but everyone does. No one gets every bet right. But I realized that there wasn't enough discussion about how strategy is the most important thing. And if you don't get your strategy right, nothing else matters.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing these talks, and then people would come up to me after these talks and say, "So where's your book?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Well, I haven't written a book." So I decided to write the book. And now I just finished the second edition of the book. I don't know when this podcast is actually going to air, but the second edition will be available probably in a week or two.
Oh, in time when we publish this episode, so it's perfect.
Yeah,
I'm glad you
yeah.
are
So
able to uh, get one in. So I hope our viewers and listeners buy the second edition and refresh the for those who have read the first book as to the updates you made. You mentioned early on you went to Amsterdam to negotiate with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones for the license. What was that like? Was it like in a room filled with smoke? Because that time it was not legal in the state of Washington.
no, there was no illegal drugs involved. Uh, it's really a fun story. So
Hmm.
um, the way it worked back in those days is that we would
Hmm.
write a creative brief and give it to the
Hmm.
ad agency, and then they would come up with the ad concepts based on the 1 or 2 page brief of which had our goals and what we were trying to achieve. And
Hmm.
the ad agency kept coming and presenting concepts, and I wasn't accepting them. They weren't
Hmm.
right. So like the third or the fourth time, I can't remember now, which is
Hmm.
a unusual number of times. Usually they get it right the first or second time.
Hmm.
But and then they were smart people. Don't get me
Hmm.
wrong about that either. It's just that I was looking for. I had very high expectations of what I needed to achieve my, consumer phenomenon goals. And so they came like the third or fourth time and presented the concept for Start Me Up.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's fantastic. That's
Hmm.
right on strategy. That's
Hmm.
great. Let's do it. And they're like, well, we have a problem.
Hmm.
And I'm like, well, what's the problem? And they said, we can't get access to the song rights unless we are willing to pay $10 million to sponsor the next Stones tour.
Hmm.
And they knew I didn't have $10 million in my budget to do that. And so then I was mad. I was like,
Hmm.
why did you present me a concept I can't execute? And they were
Hmm.
like, well, we were hoping you would go negotiate with the Stones. So I
Hmm.
flew to Amsterdam. I didn't meet with Mick Jagger. I met with, members of his team. and we banged it out all day long and did not come to an agreement. And then they said, well, let's do it again tomorrow, and then you could stay for the Unplugged concert we're going to have that night. And I said, look, I can't stay. As you guys know, life could be quite frenetic in Microsoft. And on Windows 95, I had no free time. I had to fly back for other important stuff. So they said, well, why don't you come to the dress rehearsal tonight? So I went to a dress rehearsal at an old famous theater in Amsterdam called the Paradiso.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of only 2 non-Stones personnel in the building. And I got a complete basically private concert. They went through the whole thing. It was unbelievable. Yeah, I tell the whole story on my website because people, wanted to know the whole story. So they played a whole concert, and it was really fantastic. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And so then at the end, they said, do you want to meet the Rolling Stones? And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, it can't get any better than the private concert I just got. And I had met a lot of famous people, and I didn't have any, I wasn't starstruck, so I didn't really need to meet the Rolling Stones. And I was still negotiating, so I didn't want to seem like, some guy who was, starstruck with the Rolling Stones or something. So I said, no, I don't need to meet the Rolling Stones. And so we left the concert. I flew back, and we continued to negotiate. Eventually, just in the nick of time, my poor ad team was going apoplectic because we didn't have a lot of time. We got the deal done. And to this day, I tell everyone when I tell this story that half the people I tell the story to think I was the biggest idiot in the world for not meeting the Rolling Stones. And then the other half say you were the wisest person for not meeting the Rolling Stones because you had a perfect concert and it could only go downhill. So I don't know what the right answer is, but that is what happened. And it's a longer story, and like I said, I go through the details, more of the details on my website. But it was a lot of fun, and we got the deal done, and then the ads were fantastic. And when the team presented me the final ad or what they wanted me to prove, I was so impressed with what the team had done. I only made one change to the ad, which is if you go back to the ad and watch it, it's available on YouTube. At the end, a little girl turns her head just to the beat of the music, and I wanted a dramatic ending to the ad, and they didn't have that. They had everything else perfect, and so I just told them I need a dramatic ending. They added that, and we were.
Oh wow, that's awesome. That's a great story. Yeah. The only thing I could say is there was no Instagram then, so even if you had gone, only nobody would believe you. B, you couldn't post it anywhere. So, hey, I saw Mick Jagger. There was none of that. You probably could have a picture in the mantle, but that's about it. You can't get better than that. So, if you could share your website that you mentioned, so that people can visit and read the whole story for our listeners. We'll also put it in the link when we publish the episode.
Yeah, it's bradchase.net. Really simple.
Okay, that's easy. So hopefully all our listeners and viewers go out and read the whole story of Rolling Stones and enjoy the negotiations that you did with them. That's pretty awesome.
It was pretty crazy. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. I don't think there has been, at least I cannot recall another special song that since then, I mean, there have been many that Microsoft has done since then, but that one was such a big, dramatically different, music licensing deal that was done for a software product. Till then, there was a lot being done, but this was completely different. Very, very different.
I don't know for sure, but some people have told me that it may have been the first, or at least one of the first times that a major rock song was used in a ad like that. I don't know. I haven't tried to look up the history of it, but I do know that was the first ad Microsoft ever did, broad consumer television ad for a product. We had done Microsoft ads before, but we'd never done a product ad. That was the first time we did that.
It was more. I mean, by then that song was an anthem. It was. I mean, in the anthology of all Rolling Stone songs, that one was up there, and it was used many. I mean, I football games used it at that time, So, but it was still a stadium. It was not like on TV,
Right.
along with another
Well, people
product.
still tell me, here we are almost 30 years later. Well, it'll be 30 years actually, now you think about it,
Hmm.
on August 24th. People
Hmm.
still tell me that when they hear Start Me Up, they think of Windows 95, even 30 years
Yeah,
later.
yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. You maybe on August 24th, coinciding the 50 years celebration Microsoft is doing, they'll have a 30 years of Windows 95 launch of the Start Me Up song. And Mick
Yeah.
Jagger is still around. Mick Jagger is still around.
Yeah, we should relicense the product, the song again, and do something new. Yeah.
Oh, Brad,
Uh,
that's an amazing story. Amazing story. I'll let Shirish bring you back and talk about more serious things about about the things you've contributed at your time at Microsoft.
all right,
That's
sounds
great.
good.
Great. Yeah, great story, Brad. Great story. I guess I just one final question, since this is a podcast really meant for entrepreneurs, is you worked with different startup companies. You're involved with a company called Visria, which I was also an investor in, and then subsequently you've also been advisor to various startups. What is one piece of advice that you would give to entrepreneurs from your experience at Microsoft that that they would benefit from?
So the piece of advice I give entrepreneurs all the time is to make sure that they're building a winning strategy and that they're making the right bets. That was key to the success of Microsoft, right? As I mentioned earlier, Microsoft bet on the PC, or Bill in many ways bet on the PC, bet on languages, bet on the operating system, bet on GUI, graphical user interface, i.e. Windows and Windows applications, that those bets and future bets like the cloud and AI, all those bets, betting on those things was the key. And if you're an entrepreneur starting a business, and this is core to what Strategy First, my book, is all about, you need to make the right bets. And the right bets generally have three components you have to think about. The first is customer value. Unless you're in a commodity product, you have to really think about what your customer value is for whoever your customers are. The second is what is your market potential? There's lots of products that have customer value, but can't make a lot of money. And so you have to think about what your market potential is. And third is your ability to execute on those two things. Execution is key to strategy, because if you don't execute well, you can't provide the customer value or the market potential you're trying to reach. And the other key piece of that is all those things only matter relative to the competition, because you could have incredible customer value, but be in a marketplace where someone else has even more customer value. And so you have to think about your business strategy and your unique bet and how that works relative to the competition. And the key components, as I said before: customer value, market potential, and execution.
You have a nice formula for that, right? E is equal to MC squared. Nice way to remember the
Yeah,
key
I,
principles.
I,
Yeah,
I did a riff on the famous, Albert Einstein
right.
relativity equation, E equals MC squared. Yeah, it's E times MC squared in
Yeah.
my case, and that's what I call the strategic theory of relativity. And I talk in my book about how you can use it. Not You can't get exact numbers or anything, but you could use it as a guide to your thinking, as a way to force yourself to step back and say, am I building the right strategy relative to the company?
Great. Excellent. Great to catch up after so many years. I'm sure you're doing well, advising lots of startups. We'd love to have you on our TIE panel in the future, talk about your book and talk about your theory. So thanks again for spending some time with us, and all the best with your 25th anniversary.
Yeah. Well, yeah, 30th actually for Windows 95.
30th, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
30th, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been my pleasure I mean, you two are obviously very, very accomplished yourselves. I mean, and I'm sure people can learn a lot from you, but it'd be my pleasure to be on a panel or do a talk at one of your one of your events, and I'm really excited that I got to be on your podcast.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to our podcast from Startup to Exit, brought to you by TI Seattle. Assisting in production today are Eesha, Jain, and Minee Verma. Please subscribe to our podcast and rate our podcast wherever you listen to them. Hope you enjoyed it.